For more now on the policing perspective with analysis on operations, enforcement and charges, CTV's public safety analyst Chris Lewis joins us live tonight. Chris, thanks for making time for us as always. In your former gig as the former OPP Commissioner, you would have actively been engaged in the planning, in the progress of this operation in the nation's capital. Is it what you expected?
Well, just to clarify, I'd have a lot of good people reporting to me that look after all of that and just keep me informed. And that was good for me because they were so good at it. But things are going well there. I mean, we had a shaky start a few weeks ago, and they've been fighting uphill ever since within Ottawa Police to get the resources they need after this group became very entrenched, and they're behind the eight ball somewhat to try and catch up. But they got resources from coast to coast in the country, hundreds of OPP, hundreds of Mounties, Sûreté to Quebec, right to Vancouver and further to the east. So, you know, that's all very important. They had worked on the plan all along, but the average person in the public would never understand, and that's not their fault. Behind the scenes, there's been hundreds of hours of investigations and intelligence gathering, trying to identify the main players and on, in addition to, you know, putting the plans together on so many fronts. So it's come together finally very well. They did a great job. I was very impressed with the professionalism of all the agencies working together. Not easy to do, bring people together from all sorts of provinces that have traveled sometimes in some cases for a day or two and you know, crash in a hotel and suddenly they're out in the street wearing a gun. So that's great. Nobody's been badly hurt. Nobody has been killed, thankfully. But we're going to be in for another day or two of this because they've got a lot to deal with still.
Chris, you talk about identifying the key players. To my knowledge, at least 4 of the convoy organizers have now been arrested and charged with various charges. What does that do for the morale of the group to take out their bosses, essentially, their fearless leaders?
Yeah, you know what? Some of those fearless leaders, to use that term, have brought a lot of those people to the table that may not have otherwise participated in any kind of law-breaking protests at all. But they were convinced by somebody to go, and that's part of the charges against some of them. Once that person's gone, you're thinking, I really don't want to be here anyway. He's gone. Why am I here? So that certainly changes a lot of things. There's nobody to help strategize, and because their strategies have to be as fluid as the police as things change around them. And without that leader behind them, edging or kind of encouraging them to move on, they lose that. And it's an old military theory, really. Like if you killed the general out in the field somewhere in war times, then sometimes things just kind of drop downhill from there. So here they are, but a lot of them still have spirit, and they still are hell-bent to cause problems for the people of Ottawa.
Thank you, Chris. I want to bring in Craig Brommel, who is the former head of the Toronto Police Association Union, also an officer yourself, Craig, for some 25-plus years. Thank you for joining us, Beatrice and Chris and I tonight. I want to ask you about some of these charges. So we know there's been 100-plus arrests at this point, including some of the charges against some of the leaders of this. Tamara Litch has been charged with counseling to commit the offense of mischief. And that's the only charge. This is someone who collected funds that were used toward this. We don't know if there's been an update to those charges, if this is the only item she will be charged with. What I want to ask you as well, what exactly does that charge mean? And on top of that, what kind of consequence can we expect? One thing I've heard is that if these people who have been charged are released, they are told you cannot come back to Ottawa. Is that likely, and what would the time frame be?
Well, I think it's going to be up to the courts. It's going to be up to a justice of the peace. But I think that the original mischief was just to get them arrested. I believe there's a full investigation going on here with any other criminal charges that could be laid. They've obviously gathered all kinds of intelligence toward, obviously, the leaders of this who have led this. My guess is could be more charges coming. You know, in Canada, she could be released later tonight or tomorrow, or you know, being a long weekend by Tuesday, dependent on her personal status. Is she a flight risk and all that? She can be kept in, or this is for anybody that's been arrested, not just her. So it's going to be up to the courts. It's out of the police hands. They put the case forward. Depending on if they are asking for to stay in custody, or obviously conditions, a minimum, having boundaries to stay at the least out of the Ottawa area.
Yes, so thank you so much for that, Chris. I want to put it to you. If the judge determines terms of release are leave Ottawa immediately and don't come back, what happens if you return? And on that note, these leaders, at least 4 of them who have been arrested, does this qualify as some kind of organized crime?
It doesn't really at this point. But as Craig said, there's a lot of investigation to occur. So they had enough to lay the counseling to commit mischief charge. Like when Craig and I were young officers, mischief was smashing a window or kicking a mailbox down or whatever. But that's changed over the years to, obstructing people from lawfully using property and highways and things like that, which we just weren't used to years ago. So what they, in essence, are saying is she counseled people to do that. Mm-hmm. And so if, in fact, they tell her she can't attend another public protest, she can't come back to Ontario because she's from Saskatchewan, can't go to Ottawa, whatever, then the moment she breaks any of those things, and they'll be watching for her if she appears anywhere, she can be arrested right there on the spot, on site. And ultimately, the charges get a lot more serious then because she's defied the conditions of the previous release. One of the other issues around these organizers is that as the investigations are going on, they've arrested 100 people. If some of them are kind of key players at all, they may want to make deals around, giving information to help them in their other investigations against the protesters to try and get, some sort of deal on sentencing or whatever. And who knows what all those financial issues are that they're still digging into. So there may be lots of more serious charges yet. There may not, too. But so there's a lot to come there. But getting her off the road, out of the mess, and kind of keeping her out of the protest world for a while was key.
Craig, I want to ask you about images that we started seeing last week at the Ambassador Bridge, photos of children hand in hand, holding hands with adults, trying to block officers from gaining access to the Ambassador Bridge. Now we're hearing in Ottawa today, children on the front lines of this demonstration with their parents. Pets are there as well. Here's a photo tweeted by CTV's very own Evan Solomon about people who brought their children to the demonstration. Are these kids and pets being used as pawns? And what do you make of this, Craig?
It's very disturbing. With Chris and I in our careers, anything with children was, because we all have children ourselves. And I think to see this, I would really like to see the parents of the photo you just showed of that child to be investigated. It's very sad when you see this. And I think hopefully this is all part of the bigger picture here to investigate everybody, have Children's Aid investigate these parents, and make sure that they turn over every stone on things like this, because there's a bigger picture here. This is not over. This is, who knows where it's going to go, who knows how much longer it's going to go, what the next move of this group is. And so when we see things like that, I think all of your viewers should be disturbed by that. And the police are used to dealing with children when, when the parents are going to be arrested. That's something they do every day. They're very professional about it across the country. But it's very upsetting to all of us. It'd be upsetting to the officers also.
Chris, I want to put the last question to you about children, because, of course, it's something everyone is concerned about when they see these images. What Interim Chief Bell said today is no need to engage Children's Aid as we've interacted with the crowd. He says even through all the planning, it shocks and surprises me that we see children put in harm's way. And as CTV's Evan Solomon noted earlier, as per the Emergencies Act, children cannot be at this site. So why was the Children's Aid Society not engaged if parents are refusing to leave with their kids?
I watched that, Jackie, and saw him make that statement. My sense was, and I may be misreading it, was that they didn't need to turn those children over to the Children's Aid for whatever reason. Once they got them out of there wasn't any fear of them, being in danger. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but they know more than I do, obviously. As opposed to when they took the kids, they had to give them Children's Aid. There's nowhere else for them to go or no family to look after them. And their parents were going to jail or something like that. That would change things. I watched the live today, and I saw 4 kids from about age 13 down to maybe 6 with their parents 5 feet from the line where the police and the crowd were pushing one another. And the kids are smiling like they're watching a circus. And it just made me sick to my stomach. What parent would do that? There was all kinds of warnings that this was, you had to be out of there. You couldn't be there. And then there was violence. They're making arrests and arresting the people on the ground, and the kids are standing there like they're watching the circus bear. You know, it was really sickening to me. And if those people aren't charged in some way for that, I think it's sad. But the investigation, they got so much on the go right now. I'm sure they've made sure the kids are okay, and they'll continue to investigate and look at video and stuff and determine charges or not.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. Craig, we appreciate it. I know we'll talk to you again in the next few days. Thanks so much for your analysis tonight.